This One's Wife. Just stick to the truth and other BS with Harry. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Harry was in the UK and then he went to the Ukraine. He conducted an interview with The Guardian. For those of you who may not be familiar with The Guardian newspaper, it is a left-leaning news outlet and traditionally is anti-monarchist. Maybe not necessarily Republican supporting, although elements within the newspaper might well be, but ordinarily it's not going to be seen as an outlet that would be hugely supportive of the royal family, fawning and gushing over them. Interestingly, they conducted an interview with Prince Harry, which I suspect is part of the fact that the Guardian regards him as fair opportunity to have a conversation with because he's no longer a working royal, and also part of his recent PR push to have his image rehabilitated with a view to try and get back into the royal family. It was an interesting interview in terms of what it shows us about the state of mind of Harry and how the influence of This One's Wife has impacted upon him. A significant segment of it is taken up in relation to talking about his involvement with Invictus and him attending a memorial to the fallen in relation to those who've been involved in the war between Ukraine and Russia. I'm not going to focus on those points, but for the purpose of balance, it's important to point out that that formed part of the article and provided commentary on that aspect of his trip. The article explains, because of the sheer numbers of wounded, Invictus has become increasingly well known in Ukraine, and Harry, somewhat surprisingly, has achieved cult hero status. The Guardian accompanied him on the journey to the capital, something of a gamble for both sides, as Harry noted. He is suspicious of the media, and the Guardian has long been critical of the monarchy. Over the next 36 hours, we learn a lot, big and small, about this complex, conflicted man. He doesn't like posing for staged photographs, unlike his wife, and he doesn't like cycling. I have a bony ass. He likes to box to relieve his frustrations, hitting the hell out of a bag. I don't think he's referencing his wife in that regard. He says, helps him to decompress. In private, he is very informal, padding around in his socks on the train. Indeed, there is a picture in the article of him sat there in his socks, to and from Kyiv and making dad jokes. In public, he has a confident voice and an easy charm with strangers. But on his own, he is softly spoken and asks questions about people and about politics. He has views. He is not, he says, the unhappy man some of the press like to portray him as. But yes, he wants to spend more time in the United Kingdom. Naturally, he wants to portray the image like that of his wife, of an idyllic life in California. Remember, he's ensnared by a narcissist and as such will be subjected to the sustained devaluation. That happens and has happened. There's no escaping it. Naturally, he's not going to sit down with a journalist and start saying, yeah, I am pretty miserable. There are days when I've got nobody to talk to. My wife ignores me, calls me names, triangulates me, etc. He's just not going to admit that. And instead, he's going to present the front of being happy, mainly because he doesn't want the media to get one over on him by suggesting that he is unhappy. He makes the clear signal about wanting to spend more time in the United Kingdom, which smacks of two things. First of all, it's a kind of come and get me that's often issued by footballers to a club when they want away as a consequence of a transfer, that he's suggesting to his family, I want more time in the United Kingdom, make it happen. We suspect that that's because there's a necessity for money and a bailout. But also, if he was that happy in California, why would he want to spend more time in the United Kingdom? The article continues. Does he regret putting his side of the story in the very public way that he has? No, he doesn't. My conscience is clear. Now, this shows more of the fuckwittery of old Fantapubes coming out with a comment like that, because he has repeatedly told porky pies, exaggerated, and has slated his family and the institution to which he belongs. He would do far better to admit that he has made mistakes. Naturally, he's not going to do so because of his strong narcissistic trait of pride, and moreover, if he were to do so, he would certainly get it in his neck from the narcissist. This is the problem that Harry faces. He's fucked up. He probably doesn't realise the extent to which he has fucked up because he's not very bright, and he also suffers from being deluded at times. But he will have known that he will have made mistakes. But his arrogance is such, and the necessity of self-preservation, whereby he isn't going to admit to it, and unfortunately for him, make stupid comments such as, "My conscience is clear," which means for the many people that look upon Harry's conduct, which they see as reprehensible, they will just see as further arrogance on his part. But Harry, you've behaved atrociously, and now you claim your conscience is clear. You utter dickwad. He talks a little about his mother, Diana, that's predictable enough, and his father too. If Invictus is his professional priority, it seems clear his father is a personal one. "Yes, I have enjoyed the week," says Harry. "I have always loved the UK. Well, you've got a funny way of showing it as of late, and I always will love the UK. It's been good to reconnect with the causes I am passionate about. I've been able to spend some time with people that I've known for so long. It is hard to do it from far away." Indeed it is. He adds, "It is only in certain elements of the press where you see this talk about me being down or saying I am not smiling. This comes from people who think they know what I am thinking and how I am feeling. They are wrong. I think parts of the British press want to believe that I am miserable, but I'm not. I'm very happy with who I am, and I like the life that I live. If he hasn't always seemed cheerful, then that is hardly surprising given what he's been going through," he says. "I've certainly had to deal with some very stressful events over the last 4 years. There has been the uncertainty and stress of the litigation and finding out certain things that have really, really hurt." So, you're not that happy then, are you? Because you've been experiencing stressful events and certain things that have hurt you, although he doesn't make mention of what those things are. He then goes on to state, "I feel a lot of support from the British public, even now when I feel like I have been destroyed by certain members of the British press. It serves them to think that the British public feels the same way about me as they do. But I don't feel that, and I don't see that. For as long as I have known, certain elements of the British press have tried to speak on behalf of the nation. I think they are out of touch with the nation on lots of things. They hope to bring the public with them, but I think the British public can speak and think for themselves." Okay. So Harry's going down the route, no doubt as a consequence of PR advice, of divide and conquer. "Hey, British people, I don't blame you. I know you love me. It's the press who are the baddies, yeah? Let's you and I buddy up again like we used to and say Yahoo sucks to the horrible British press." We know Harry dislikes the media. He dislikes the media because he has a deep-rooted belief that they caused the death of his mother, as opposed to it being as a consequence of the fact that she was killed by a drunk driver and a failure to wear a seatbelt. Furthermore, he claims that he's traumatised by flashbulbs going off, yet regularly courts the media these days, showing again his propensity for hypocrisy. But what he's seeking to do here is to try and get the British public on side by saying, they're not suckers for what the media say about me. They can think for themselves. They love me. I know that they do. You might think that he's being deluded with such a belief, but I think that he knows that elements of the British public do not hold him in the high regard that they once did. And what he's trying to do is to try and get them back on side as part of this rehabilitation of his image. At first blush, for him to say that he believes that the British public, I feel a lot of support from the British public, you might think that's a deluded view. But I do think that he recognises that he's got a lot of work to do to repair his image with the British public, and the route that he's chosen to go down is to suggest, no, I don't actually blame them. They've been misled by the press. The press are the problem. The media are the problem. The public, they can think for themselves. They actually like me. But he's got a huge problem in that regard. You only have to look at the comments section, whereby he is roundly called, and repeatedly so, a traitor, an idiot, a self-absorbed man-child. This isn't just in the likes of the comments section of the Daily Mail, it's across a variety of media outlets. His image has tanked. He regularly comes very low down, usually third from bottom, with Prince Andrew at the bottom, his wife next to bottom, and then him in popularity polls. This has all been as a consequence of the fact that the unpleasant aspects of Harry are no longer kept away from the public eye because he doesn't have the protection of the institution that is the establishment of the monarchy, and furthermore, the influence that has come with his ensnarement with this one's wife. Accordingly, he has become unpopular. His image has been severely tarnished as a consequence of his own behaviours. And whilst naturally this has been highlighted by the media, Harry is the one who is responsible for the choices that he has made, which has resulted in the British public seeing this. And I don't think he fully appreciates the depth to which his image has plummeted and been tarnished. He knows that it has happened to some extent, and he's seeking to try and remedy that. But it is a huge task to turn it around. And with many of the comments that are seen, it's beyond redemption. And thus, he thinks that he can turn it around, and this is another attempt to say to the British public, please do continue to like me. We can get on, ignore the press. It's painting the press as the villain. But unfortunately, he and this one's wife are the villains, and he doesn't fully appreciate that. He's asked, would he like to spend more time in the United Kingdom to bring his children one day, despite the issues over his security arrangements? Yes, I would. This week has definitely brought that closer. Harry won't talk about his father, but he seems to suggest he wants and needs to see his father more often, probably because he recognises that at some point Charles is going to shuffle off this mortal coil, and he wants to ensure that he's included in the will because he needs some spondulics, something that will have been impressed upon him by his avaricious wife. Over the coming year, he says, the focus really has to be on my dad. Harry does care about his father. However, it is alongside a significant self-serving streak, which is regularly massaged by his wife so that it is exacerbated and embellished. He talks about the focus really has to be on my dad, which seems to be Harry telegraphing that his father is on his way out. Now, whilst we know that Charles has cancer, there's no evidence to suggest that it's at a stage where he's going to be gone in a year or so. But by stating over the coming year, the focus really has to be on my dad, this makes it seem as if that is the case. Harry mentions his wife, this one's wife, only once by name, a reference to something she told him about how telling the truth is the most efficient way to live. She said, just stick to the truth. It is the thing I always fall back on, always. And if you think like that, who will be stupid enough to lie? It takes up too much time and effort. This is breathtaking bullshittery from the Prince of Pink Pancakes. Naturally, the deluded nature of his narcissist wife, who is a regular peddler of lies, but remember, as an unaware narcissist, her lies are her truth, means that he's fallen for it too. She, without any sense of irony or self-awareness, believes she tells the truth. She has been proven to be a liar, a reviser of history, time and time again. And for him to believe that his wife tells the truth, and for him to accept her mantra of just stick to the truth, shows just how easily manipulated he is. That he's devoid of any critical thinking when it comes to his wife's influence upon him. He has told lies. He may not realise it. In some instances, I believe that he does, but he won't admit to it because of pride. The fact is that this statement, where he says, I follow what my wife says of just sticking to the truth, is breathtakingly arrogant, inaccurate, and demonstrates the idiocy of this man and how easily manipulated he is by his wife, who continues to believe that she spouts the truth and gives you yet again excellent insight into the way that the narcissist behaves. You all know that she's told repeated porky pies. You do. You've witnessed them yourself. You've seen them documented. You've undoubtedly seen it in press and across social media where people have highlighted the many lies that she has come out with. And yet she persists, notwithstanding this exposure, to maintain that she tells the truth. And that's because she's deluded. And she's deluded because her narcissism will not cause her to ever genuinely admit that she's told a lie, because that would mean she would be ceding control. And control is what she must have. And thus, she seriously, laughable as it is, seriously believes that she tells the truth, and then, the sanctimonious idiot that she is, she goes around telling Harry, just stick to the truth. Telling the truth is the most efficient way to live. And you can imagine the condescending way that she says that. She probably writes it on a blackboard somewhere, reminding Harry, or putting it on a post-it note and sticking it on a mirror in one of the many bathrooms at Monty Shit Show. The article continues by stating this brings him to the very public things he said about his life, the interviews, the TV series, and the book he wrote, Spare. He stated, I know that speaking out annoys some people and it goes against the narrative. The book, it was a series of corrections to stories already out there. One point of view had been put out and it needed to be corrected. That's the language of his wife. He adds, I don't believe that I aired my dirty laundry in public. It was a difficult message, but I did it in the best way possible. My conscience is clear. Again, we know from Spare that contained porky pies, that it had this one's wife's paw prints all over it, and that he regularly lambasted his family. And once again, for him to say my conscience is clear demonstrates idiocy and arrogance on the part of this plank. Being called stubborn slightly rankles with him. It's not stubbornness, it is having principles. That's the kind of thing, again, that this one's wife would say. It seems he does not want to prolong any legal battles. He does not ever expect to get positive coverage from some quarters. A ceasefire is perhaps the best he can hope for. Well, if he stopped telling lies and behaved himself, he might be able to gain that. Again, he comes out with an observation which you could just hear this one's wife saying in a bout of day drinking. It is not about revenge, it is about accountability, he says. Nor does he want to prolong any divisions with his family. But in life, he says, you cannot have reconciliation before you have truth. Sanctimonious, ridiculous, arrogant. Traits that Harry has himself, and when he's met this one's wife, she stokes those traits all the more as a consequence of her control over him by drawing him into the awful shared fantasy, the folie d'oeil of them against the world. A telling interview which provides us with an interesting breakdown of the mindset of Harry, the involvement of this one's wife, and how there's no prospect of them ever apologising for the way that they have behaved, because they both don't think they've done anything wrong. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.